Hello and welcome to another episode of Outtakes from the Mystics Reading Group. Today I'll be reading from Brother Lawrence of the Resurrection, a 17th century Christian mystic who lived in Paris, France, in a monastery for most of his adult life. You'll remember from a past episode that Brother Lawrence served in the 30 Years' War. When he was a young man, he enlisted in the army, about 19, maybe 20 years old, and served in the war for a few years. 30 Years' War, by all accounts, was a terrible, tragic, utterly awful war. Brother Lawrence was injured pretty severely, wounded in his leg during the war, and suffered the pain of that wound for the rest of his life. I'm going to read from a couple of letters in Brother Lawrence's wonderful collection titled The Practice of the Presence of God. I will tell you, writes Brother Lawrence, that for about 10 years I suffered a great deal. My fear of not belonging to God as I wanted, my past sins always present before my eyes, and the amazing graces God gave me. These were the substance and source of all my sufferings. During this period I often fell, but I got back up immediately. I thought all creatures, reason, and even God Himself were against me, and only faith was for me. Sometimes I was distressed by thoughts that this was the result of my presumption, that I had pretended to be suddenly where others arrive only with difficulty. Other times I thought I was willingly damning myself, that there was no salvation for me. When I accepted that I might spend the rest of my life suffering from these troubles and anxieties, which in no way diminished my trust in God, and only served to increase my faith, I found myself changed all at once. Then my soul, until that time always in unease, felt a deep inner peace, as if finding the center and the place of rest. From then on, I've done my work before God simply, in faith, with humility and love, and I give my whole self to doing, saying, and thinking only what might please God most. I hope that when I've done all I can, God will do with me as God pleases. I cannot express to you what is happening in me at present. I feel no worry or doubt about my state, since I have no other will than that of God, which I try to carry out in all things. I am so surrendered that I would not even pick up a straw from the ground against God's order, nor for any other reason than true love. I'm drawn to this passage from Brother Lawrence for a couple of reasons. The first is his anxiety normalizes my own. The fact that this giant of the faith, this humble, beautiful, loving man, is willing to let us in on his story a little bit and tell us that he suffered for a decade or more with fear and anxiety and worry, and these thoughts generated in his mind that everyone, even God, was against him. He suffered mightily, which I find to be very normal and very human, suffering doubt about self and the spiritual journey, and self-esteem suffering as well. What I really love in his story as he presents it here is that there's a turning point. He writes that when he accepted that his suffering and anxiety might not go away, he found himself changed all at once. He found himself resting in the presence of God in a new way. Reminds me of something the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous teaches, which is put in a one-liner that says, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. It also reminds me of one of our dear friends, Eddie Hillesum, the 29-year-old Auschwitz victim who was a Jewish mystic who many of us love and find to be a marvelous teacher. Eddie wrote in her diary when she was a captive of the Nazis, she wrote, "Oh God, I find that there is so much in life that is hard, but I also find that when I accept that which is hard, it is almost immediately transformed into the beautiful. I love you, O God, and I love life. I feel free and find life beautiful." So Eddie, like Brother Lawrence, found that when she accepted that which was so challenging, stressful, even death-dealing in her life. By some strange grace, the difficulty was turned into a beauty. And the beauty for Eddie and Brother Lawrence is not a change in exterior circumstances. The depth of beauty is found in the deepening of their love relationship with God. After his acceptance move, his life changed, and Brother Lawrence then, almost without trying, did all that he did for love. In fact, in another place in the practice of the presence of God, we find these two lines of Brother Lawrence, which are among my favorites. "Don't get tired," he writes, "of doing little things for the love of God. God considers not the importance of the work, but the love." Oh, that ought to make you take a deep breath. Our culture, I think, is sometimes programming us to believe that we've always got to be doing big, important things that might make us famous or rich or bring us some acclaim. But the witness of the Christian mystics is that that is not at all the case. That in fact God cares very little for the grandeur or importance of the work that we do, and cares entirely about the love with which we do that which is ours to do. These two lines of Brother Lawrence remind me very much of my favorite lines at the end of St. Teresa of Avila's Interior Castle, in which she says nearly the same thing. God looks less at the grandeur of our deeds and more at the love with which we perform them. And when we offer our little task to God, God takes that little offering of ours and He merges it with the offering that His Son, our Lord Jesus, made on the cross. And then our little offering is made great by the love with which we perform it, with the love that we have for God and the love that God has for us. It makes sense, of course, that Brother Lawrence would be in line with the teaching of St. Teresa, because Brother Lawrence came after Teresa, but they were in the same religious order. They were both Discalced Carmelites, a religious order that focuses on simplicity and love, prayer, and the grace and glory that we find in silence and simply making little loving turns to God and each other. I bid you peace and simplicity, and I'll see you next time.